Okay, so when we get to just looking at a chart, this chart, we've been using this chart as an example. It's been around all the time. This is Carl Jung's chart. Really, you're just working with your own chart. I've been using this as a colorful example with a lot of different things on it. Here, we see here the chart, this chart form. It's more complicated than what you're used to seeing because there's the constellations around the outside. There's 2 degree grids, an inner and outer degree grid. The outer degree grid has the sidereal zodiac on it. The inner degree grid is the seasonal or tropical zodiac, which we use. And they're in there in the colors, the 12 colors of the signs. Then the planets are put into around the wheel, around the circle, and that circle is colored with the sun sign. Here it's a Leo. And then the aspects are drawn in the middle of it. And then the houses are drawn in. And you see above, below, rising, setting. And then you can see the aspects. So we're seeing a chart, which is a DNA of someone. It's a database of information with like many layers of database. It's like you can have a spreadsheet like an Excel spreadsheet, but if you go to Access, you can have spreadsheet on spreadsheet on spreadsheet. You get levels of them. It becomes much more. If you go to a website, you're getting a database that has all kinds of levels. Some have sound, some have pictures. It comes up even more. It's kind of like that. These are all the different layers or so put together in a mandala so we can see it. Now, most computer charts, you can get in and eventually coordinate the color to get the color for the chart, the right color for the right sign, many different systems. And some of them have all different house systems. We use the Placidus house system, but this is the, yeah, so, okay. Okay, from here, I'm just going to go through this one more time and go through the reading of this to just get a sense. First, we have the signs of the zodiac. Okay, here's the images in the heavens, the seasons of the year, the signs of the zodiac, and the colors that go around it. Then we put the planets on the chart, and the planets are put in the signs they're in, and they get colored by the attitude of that sign. Okay, then you calculate the aspects between it, and you can begin to see wherever the red lines go, you see where the squares or oppositions are, and where the stress factors build up. Just by looking at a chart, you see that right away. We need to remember. Well, okay, then there's also a second level. It's like the sign, it's funny, it should be 2 separate charts. One for the signs of the zodiac, one for the houses, because one is the seasons of the year, one is the hours of the day. They're really 2 separate charts. But because they're both in a circle, they're being put on the same circle as the drawing, we're seeing the 2 at the same time. And the planets are in between, being affected by a sign and affecting a house. But really the planets are the distinctive thing. And these, so we draw the houses in the time of day, the hours of the day. We put the planets in the houses that they're in. We draw the aspects and see the aspects in. So a lot of traditional astrology reads the planet and sees the meaning of a house, reads the planet in that house. So that planet's affecting this house. And then it puts in the squares, and these are where the difficulty comes to the affairs of those houses. And that is the level that a lot of astrology is done on. And little by little, they grow up at adding the signs and understanding the other things. But really, it's like looking through your left eye instead of your right, instead of out of both, one eye instead of 2. There's really the 2, the seasons of the year are on the circle, the hours of the day on the circle. And then the planets are, each planet is a level of consciousness inside of this. So if you look at the bottom or at the top and you see the aspects, they just look like lines across a circle measuring the 90-degree squares or the oppositions. You can see the main aspects are drawn in as lines. Not everything is in the same aspect to each other. There's a great variation. So we see that we're looking at just across a chart, and it's in this sign in this house. We're looking at those things. But really, each planet's a different level of consciousness. This is not just a flat two-dimensional drawing. It's a flat two-dimensional drawing, but it implies there's a depth to it. So each planet has a different speed, a different depth that it functions on. And so an aspect is, if you imagine this is your spine and the nerve centers in your spine, each planet is a different nerve level on your spine or chakra level. And looking down the top of the head, you're looking at the top of the head, you have the crown of the zodiac sitting on you, and it's moving around. You're looking down the center of it, and then it looks right down the spine. And at the base of the spine, you have the base chakra, which is the houses that are there. It's really the image of the spine, and when you look at it, you just see the straight-on chart. But when you stretch it, you start to understand it, you realize there's a lot of different depths in here. So an aspect is not just going across the chart 90 degrees to another planet. So like if you look here down in the main part, you see the arrow to the moon. You'll see the moon on the top of the chart, Taurus. You see the moon in the bottom of the chart down here in the third house. And here's the hour for the drawing for where the moon dimension is, where the moon layer of consciousness is. And you see that this square going from the moon to Saturn is from the moon. It's really going straight up, all the way up to Saturn. But the moon's square to Uranus, the moon square to Uranus on the opposite side of the chart, it's going way up over on a whole other side. But there, and then the sextiles to Mercury and Venus, they're closer over, but they're moving in a texture, in a depth. It's not just a linear flat surface. Just like the nerves going through our system. They just seem to be running up and down our spine, but really, if you mess one up, it can affect all the others at all different levels. Whew. So this is, I love this picture because it's just the picture of in-depth astrology. Here's your horoscope. Well, we're navigating through one thing at a time. We're really trying to understand each planet and its level of consciousness. And as well as we're able to understand each planet and how well we have established our relationship to it, that's how well we'll see how it can be affected by the other planets. If we only have a narrow-minded idea of the moon, that's the only thing we're going to see from it. We won't see how it expands and leads to other things. So how I've been teaching you is so that you're seeing each planet affected by the sign, each planet affected by the houses and their categories. So you have this in-depth on each of the categories, above and below. Now we're going to go through the textures, but this is simplified. We're just looking how much stress is involved, how much stress has affected that level of consciousness. So in this case, it's the moon. We'll be dealing with the moon next week, and you should, again, try and do your workshop, try and do your worksheets before the class, so it makes it a little more interesting. But you're not going to have every aspect to your moon. You're going to have 3 or 4 aspects to your moon. Might have a sextile, might have a couple of squares, might have an opposition, might have a conjunction, but there'll be some combination. But you're not writing as much as you did on the other worksheets. You're going to 2 or 3 or 4 things for each planet, and you'll be writing down your comment and your experiences that go with it, how you interpret it happened for you. But while I'm making you do this and getting your personal connection to each factor, here we're looking at the stress. So as we're going through this, sorry, I just went up through a few too fast. It's going to go from the Mercury to, whoops, it goes to the moon, to Mercury, to Venus, to the Sun, to Mars, to Jupiter, to Saturn, to Uranus, to Neptune, to Pluto. Whoa. That's where all the aspects work, except we also start to look at how any of the planets on each of the levels, how they affect the angles, the ascendant, descendant, or the MCIC, how if they really affect the angles of the chart. To me, that's a really important significance and really noticeable behavioral pattern. It's not dealing as much with the houses as the angles, as the phases, the rising, setting, the above, below. Okay, so yeah, and when you put them all together, again, we have all the aspects together. Are we over time? Okay, so I think it's worth going through the aspects a little, going through the planets a little bit to just fill in the class. So even though we've done all these technical things, or even calculated all these technical things, we're going to use them later. Okay, right now we just want to see if how much stress is involved in each planet. Suppose we have a planet with no aspects. Wow, it doesn't mean it doesn't have a relationship to each planet, because each level of consciousness interpenetrates each other. But it's saying there's not a stressful relationship between them. They're just there. Well, sometimes when there's no stress, it has its own inherent difficulty, because when stress comes up, and it will as every aspect goes around in a circle, when stress comes up, it'll be harder to deal with it if you don't have stress in your own chart. You know, so having squares and oppositions, Mark Edmund Jones used to say, not having an opposition in your chart is a real detriment, because it means you don't have any counterbalance to develop an understanding with. Fortunately, we have basic understanding. There's a basic opposition between our motivation inwardly and our outer status, between our projection of identity and our means of relating to others. So there are oppositions we all have inherently that the signs affect, that the planets, that aspect to it, color, and we can build up. We're building up pictures, thought pictures, little image trees of relevance. I started with astrology before there were computers. So I probably hand calculated 5,000 to 10,000 charts. I did radio shows. I'd probably hand calculate 5,000 to 10,000 charts before computers came along. So it was always an effort to calculate all the aspects. You have to make 99 calculations or 90 some odd calculations. But boy, the information you got from making them and thinking about them as you're doing them was so useful in getting into knowing the person. Making the calculations and getting into it was part of the process of meditation and getting to know a person. Now we get the information without the chart, without the calculations, and we're not taking the time to reflect on it. So we get the information, we have to back up a little, slow it down. Wait a second, let's just take some time on the moon. You know, we got 5 kids, we got 9 kids in the family. We want to give attention to each of them, but not at the same time. We're just going to see one person at a time, and we'll deal with it. Of course, the last person will always feel like getting not enough attention, because things happen. It becomes, they get less, their time gets shortened and shortened. But that's the pecking order of the family. This is like the solar family. You could look at it like a orchestral band. Each planet is an instrument, and each instrument is playing its theme, and it has a harmonious or stressful relationship to the other instruments, and that puts the texture of the piece together, whether it's easy or harmonious or stressful or tense. Like that's the music. This is like the score of the symphony of your life. It's like the DNA of your being, but it's seeable as a musical theme that's unique to you. It's funny, someone's walking the hall singing.